If you think that's an unreasonable request, we can give you some of the Jones Corporation shares, Jason offered. But Lily didn't answer Grandma Jones's question right away. She remained silent while she thought about the offer. Although Grandma Jones's tone was very gentle, she never said she would return the money to Lily. And even though Lily had been a high-ranking member of the family, they booted her out anyway. So there were no guarantees that this deal wouldn't turn out the same way for her. And the shares that Jason was talking about were meaningless too. After all, he and Grandma Jones had already cheated Lily out of her controlling interest in the family's company. "You've really got some nerve saying that," Dorothy scoffed as she rolled her eyes at Grandma Jones. In the past, Dorothy had always been polite to Grandma Jones, but now that Lily was earning enough to cover their basic needs, she didn't care what she said to her. "That's enough, Mom. Let's let bygones be bygones," Lily said gently. Then she turned to her grandmother and reassured her. "I promise to help the family. Tomorrow I'll arrange for the transfer of funds." The main reason Lily had decided to do this was actually her own mother. She still had about $6 million left in the bank. If she didn't withdraw, Dorothy would probably lose it anyway. But Lily had definitely learned her lesson, so she stipulated that the Jones family would have to give her 40% of their shares. "I knew we could count on you," Grandma Jones said happily. She didn't even bother to argue about the terms because she knew that the Jones family shares had hardly any value right now. Even if she gave Lily 80% of their shares, they would barely be worth about $2 million. "So it's a deal, Grandma. Have the family's lawyer draw up the documents when you get back to the mansion," Lily said calmly. At least she'd have some shares, whatever they were worth, and Dorothy wouldn't gamble away what was left in her bank account. But it went without saying that she was going to be a lot more wary of Jason this time around. "Okay, I'll go back this afternoon and get everything ready." Grandma Jones hesitated for a moment and then she added, "We're having a big dinner tomorrow. You and your mother should join us. When everyone sees you, they'll know that you're part of the family again." "I won't be able to make it, Grandma. I'm taking classes at the School for the Healing Arts and I don't know if I'll have any free time," Lily replied. "And right now I'm meeting some friends at that new outdoor mall off of Halsted Street, so I have to get going." "I understand. Jason and I have to leave too. Have a good time with your friends," Grandma Jones answered very politely as she stood up and headed for the door. She didn't complain about Lily's refusal. After all, she'd gotten what she came for. A few minutes later, Lily and Dorothy left. Kevin heard the door close and walked over to the top of the staircase. He'd spent the night reading and then gotten some sleep, so he was feeling refreshed. He'd actually heard the entire conversation with Grandma Jones, but decided not to show himself. "I can't believe that Lily went along with that," Kevin sighed helplessly. Then he took out his phone and called Miss Wilson. "How may I help you, sir?" Miss Wilson asked him. "Let's back off on the pressure we've been putting on the Jones family for now, but don't give them too much wiggle room. I'll leave the details up to you," Kevin instructed her. "I'll take care of it, Mr. Williams," Miss Wilson promised. Kevin hung up the phone and looked outside. He decided that the weather was pretty good, so he changed his clothes and went out for a walk. The new mall of Halsted Street had been built with Tyler Dawn's help when he arrived in Chicago. It had turned out to be a very popular shopping area, even in Chicago's harsh winters. Under Tyler's direction, the KWTD Corporation had used its influence to attract a lot of high-end stores. There were also dozens of restaurants and food courts with a wide variety of options. People flocked to the neighborhood as an alternative to driving out to the suburbs to visit one of the older malls. Tyler Dawn really came up with a great idea, Kevin thought to himself. Then he was distracted by his phone, which started to vibrate like crazy. He was being bombarded with texts. Kevin clicked on the first one and was surprised to see that it was from his friend Cook. He was wondering how his friend was doing. There was also a message from Rachel and another one from Gwen Archer. She was checking to see if Kevin was still interested in teaching her. The most interesting text, though, was from Tyler Dawn, who was letting Kevin know that he'd arranged with all the stores in the mall to cover his expenses. He told Kevin, "If you want anything at all, Just go in and ask for it. Let me know when you're going to the mall and I'll fly you down there myself." The mall was really crowded, and Kevin thought to himself, maybe a plane would be handy with this many people around. In fact, there were so many people shopping and just strolling around that Kevin had realized he had no chance of finding Lily. It would be faster to just give her a call. When Lily's phone rang, she and Rachel were right in the middle of the mall. She was holding a bunch of bags in one hand and a veggie wrap in the other. She adjusted her bags and somehow managed to answer her phone. She was so excited to see that it was Kevin that she started grinning from ear to ear. "Are you back from campus, Kevin?" "Yes, I am. Where are you right now?" Kevin asked her. "We're in the middle of that new outdoor mall along Halsted," Lily answered with a smile. "Stay right where you are. Don't move an inch. I'm right by the entrance and I'm heading your way," Kevin told her. He hung up and started making his way through the crowd as he admired the scenery. Kevin wasn't aware of it, but at that very moment, Officer Emmett was walking through the same crowd. A man walked up to her and asked her if she wanted to come over to his kiosk. "Would you like to have your palm read, ma'am?" "I'm not interested," she replied bluntly. Officer Emmett had more important things to do that day. Officer Emmett was walking through the crowds at the new mall on Halsted Street when a man in a long purple robe that looked like a Halloween costume invited her to have her palm read at his kiosk. The sign over his table read, "Professor Futurioso." "Sorry, I'm not interested." Officer Emmett smiled and shook her head. She'd never bought into any of that stuff. "Why don't you just give me a few minutes of your time? I'll bet you really want to believe, Kelly," the man said cryptically as he stroked his goatee. "How did you know my first name is Kelly?" she asked in surprise. "I can see far into the past and even farther into the future. Knowing your name is really quite simple," he replied smugly. "That's pretty impressive," Sherwin Blair said in surprise. "Please read my fiancé's palm for her. I'll pay you whatever you want." "You've misunderstood my intentions. Palm reading has everything to do with fate, not money," he explained to Blair. Then he rubbed his beard again and continued. "Since fate has brought us together in this huge crowd, maybe we were meant to meet. I won't charge you anything for this reading." "That's very generous of you," Blair exclaimed loudly, instantly drawing the attention of the people around them. "Could you please tell me your date of birth?" the man asked Officer Emmett. "January 14th, 1992, she answered excitedly. She really didn't have that much going on today, so she might as well have a little fun. They walked over to his kiosk, and Officer Emmett sat down across from Professor Futurioso. He took her hand and looked at it thoughtfully before commenting. "I see that you're very powerful and have an impressive heart line." Then he paused and added, "But I'd like to try something else to give you more specific advice." Then he pulled a deck of tarot cards out of his puffy sleeve. Officer Emmett raised an eyebrow, but let him continue. He drew the cards and placed them on the little table between them. "I see here that your career isn't going as well as you'd hoped, but you have someone very generous in your life," he began. Then he put a tower card on the table and said, "But something has brought disaster into your life." The next card he drew was the Fool, and he commented, "There's another relationship in your life that you need to change because it's coming to an end." Strangely, the face on the character looked a little bit like Kevin, but Officer Emmett put that down to coincidence. She was stunned by his comments, but didn't notice when Professor Futurioso looked over at Blair after he finished speaking. Then he continued, "It looks like you need to make an immediate change so that your life and career can get back on track." "Then what should I do?" Officer Emmett wondered. In spite of her skepticism, she was starting to believe him. It was true that she'd had a lot of setbacks at work, especially her failure to make any progress with the Myriads or the Alliance. This guy was accurate so far. Maybe he could suggest a solution for her. "It's very simple. If you want to be happy, you need to make a leap of faith right away and cut your ties with any bad influences in your life. He told her with a smile before adding, and there's no time like the present. She looked at him in shock and understood right away what he was talking about. Then the man nodded and turned to look at Blair. It seems to me that this is the man who will bring you that happiness. You're destined to be together. When she heard this, Officer Emmett started to feel a little emotional. Even though she and Blair had been engaged for a while now, she'd been reluctant to set a date. Blair thought that the moment was right to make his move. He got down on one knee and pulled out a small velvet jewelry box. Kelly, we've been together for such a long time. Will you marry me? Blair asked her so loudly that everyone around them started to cheer. The bystanders waited impatiently to hear Officer Emmett's response. You have to say yes, Kelly. I know that you're a match made in heaven. Professor Futurioso encouraged her. She looked at Blair, who was still kneeling on the ground, and she was so touched that she didn't know what to say. But then Officer Emmett turned her head and saw a familiar face in the crowd. As she began to step away, Blair stood up to see why she was distracted. Kevin, wait a second. I have something to talk to you about. Officer Emmett called out as she walked over to him. What's this guy doing here? Blair asked angrily as he gave Professor Futurioso a dirty look. Officer Emmett hadn't figured out that Blair had actually hired the tarot reader and had set the whole thing up. Have you been looking for me? Kevin inquired. At the same time, he squinted a little as he happened to notice that Blair and the tarot reader were whispering to each other. I wanted to ask you if you happen to have a power pill on you, she said hesitantly. As it turns out, she wanted to ask Kevin for one when she saw him on campus for the first day of school, but because of the fight between Kevin and Blair, she never got the chance. Then Officer Emmett got too busy at work, so she didn't have any time to call him. Now that she'd spotted Kevin in the crowd, she decided to seize the opportunity. What do you want it for? Kevin questioned her with a slight frown. Just as she was about to answer, Blair suddenly announced, What a coincidence! We can't seem to get rid of you, can we? You're like a that keeps coming back. The crowd turned to look at Kevin, and people started to wonder who this man was who had interrupted the touching wedding proposal. How can you say something like that to Kevin in front of so many people? Officer Emmett asked him anxiously. She was so close to getting a power pill from Kevin and didn't want Blair to screw things up. What would she do if Blair got Kevin mad again and he left without helping her out? Why are you standing up for this bag again, Kelly? Blair complained. I thought that a law enforcement officer would have more sense than to believe in tarot readings, Kevin said mockingly as he glared at the bearded man wearing the cheesy purple robe. You guys go ahead and have fun. I'm going to look for my wife. Hey, don't be in such a hurry to leave. This guy's pretty good. Don't you want to find out what he has to say about your future? Blair bellowed as he quickly pulled Kevin back. You really ought to give him a try. He's eerily accurate, Officer Emmett added. Whether he's accurate or not doesn't matter to me. I don't believe in any of this stuff, Kevin replied coolly. He started to walk away, but the man stopped him. He couldn't let Kevin leave yet because Blair had ordered him to embarrass him. Even if he couldn't beat him in a fight, he could at least insult him. I told you I don't believe in any of this. Now let me go, Kevin ordered him. Kevin didn't know what kind of game Blair was playing, but he was sure that this guy had some tricks up his sleeve. Besides, he still had to find Lily, and he really didn't have the time to waste on this nonsense. Don't be angry, young man. I'll do your reading for free. Professor Futurioso smiled as he started to shuffle the deck of cards. He deliberately acted shocked. I hope you're not the fool that showed up in Kelly's reading. You do realize that as long as you stay in contact with Kelly, you'll only bring her bad luck. In addition, you won't have any good fortune in your own life either. You'll be forced to spend the rest of your life mooching off your wife's family, he added. That's another good reading. You really know what you're doing, Blair laughed out loud. Don't listen to him, Kevin. Even a good tarot reader can make mistakes, Officer Emmett reassured Kevin. But Kevin wasn't upset at all. He just stood there and looked at the man from head to toe, trying to figure him out. The more he looked at the guy, the more he thought something wasn't right about him. His robe didn't seem to fit him right, and his goatee looked like it had been glued onto his chin. It really doesn't bother me, Kevin stated frankly as he turned his head and looked at Officer Emmett. Don't tell me you actually believe this guy. Well, everything he said about me was true, Officer Emmett said firmly. She had no doubts that the tarot reader was genuine. Face it, Kevin, there's nothing you can do to change your fate, Blair sneered. So, you're really that good, are you? Kevin glared at the man. Since you're so skilled, did you see that today would turn into a complete disaster for you? I only know what the cards tell me, he responded indignantly. Ma'am, my advice is to stay away from this man. He can only bring you bad luck. If you continue to have anything to do with him, you'll regret it for the rest of your life. Blair took Officer Emmett by the arm and pulled her away from Kevin. See, Kelly, I'm not the only one who's told you that. Kevin's a bad influence. Officer Emmett nodded regretfully and started to turn away from Kevin. She was very conflicted about the whole situation. Kevin could only sigh. He didn't want to interfere in Officer Emmett's life, but this person had gone too far. If you know so much about tarot cards, you should know that the Fool card can also mean a new beginning. Just because he's dressed in shabby clothing doesn't mean he'll bring misfortune. The other way to look at it is that someone will bring good things to Officer Emmett's life. Kevin explained so that everyone could hear him. They were all surprised to hear Kevin's interpretation of Officer Emmett's cards. Could he actually be right? The man was stunned and looked incredibly embarrassed. Blair had paid him a lot of money to trick Officer Emmett. How could this loser know so much about tarot readings? The guy had no idea how to respond. I've had it with this, Kevin scowled as he got right in his face. I think you're a fake, and I already predicted that today would be a disaster for you. Then Kevin shoved the man, sending him sprawling on the sidewalk in front of his kiosk. What are you doing, Kevin? You can't just hit him for no reason at all, Blair roared. He couldn't let Kevin ruin his plans like this, especially when Kelly was just about to say yes to setting a wedding date. He's right, Kevin. You can't just shove people around when you don't agree with them, Officer Emmett scolded him. But Kevin didn't pay any attention to their objections. He glowered at the man as he struggled to get up off the ground. Young man, you're letting your temper get the best of you, and now you're ignoring some very useful advice. If you don't change your ways now, you'll never get control of your violent urges. The man advised Kevin as he did his best to ignore the pain caused by his fall. By now, the crowd of onlookers was starting to defend him. Just because he said something you didn't like, that's no excuse to get physical, an older gentleman shouted. It's not his fault you don't believe what he said about you. He wasn't trying to hurt you, another onlooker chimed in. Blair was absolutely ecstatic when he heard what everyone was saying to Kevin. He'd embarrassed him, and all it had cost was a few bucks. But Kevin didn't care what any of these strangers were saying about him. He just reached out and pulled the man's fake goatee off his chin. Did you see that? The fake tarot card reader has a fake beard, Kevin proclaimed as he held up the clump of hair for everyone to see. You've gone too far. So what if I had a fake beard? The man growled at Kevin. What else about you is false? Kevin glared as he grabbed the man's purple robe and yanked it off of him. The crowd was shocked for a moment and then broke into laughter. Under his robe, he was wearing a cheap suit. Now what do you have to say for yourself? Kevin asked him sternly. The man began to stammer as he searched for an explanation, but he knew he'd been caught. Kevin looked Officer Emmett in the eyes and gave her a wink. So, you're a scam artist, are you? I didn't believe any of your nonsense in the first place, Officer Emmett told him as she pulled out her phone. How about I get someone to take you down to the police station to find out who you really are? Kevin was slightly amused by all this. Scammers are getting pretty good lately. This one actually had fooled a police lieutenant.
"Please, help me, Mr. Blair," the man shouted as he broke into tears and continued to beg for mercy. "You have to do something. My mother-in-law is sick and I have 2 toddlers at home. My whole family depends on me to feed them. If I go to jail, what will happen to them?"
"Get lost! Why the hell are you coming to me for help?" Blair said angrily as he pushed the man away. Officer Emmett had a hard time getting through to the station, and then realized they probably had a skeleton crew today because everyone was on crowd control for all the activity downtown. She couldn't call the regular 911 line because this wasn't that kind of an emergency. "I'm going to cut you a break," Officer Emmett told him firmly. "This is your chance to turn over a new leaf. If I ever catching you doing something like this again, or if I even hear that you've been ripping people off, I'll have you brought in and I'll throw the book at you." He'd really lucked out and he knew it. But Officer Emmett still hadn't gotten an answer from Kevin about the power pill. When Kevin exposed Professor Futurioso as a fraud, Emmett decided to cut the guy some slack and just give him a warning.
Thank you, Officer Emmett," the man quickly replied, and then he slinked away.
Seeing that the fun was over, the crowd began to disperse. Officer Emmett walked over to Kevin and said, "I'm so sorry I believed what that liar told me. Can you ever forgive me?" She felt extremely awkward about the whole thing. After all, she was in charge of her precinct's criminal investigation unit. How could she have been fooled by a swindler and a fake beard? If word of this got out, she would never be able to face her colleagues again. A brain's a good thing to have. Next time you go out, you should take it with you. Kevin teased her as he gave her a broad smile. "I can't argue with that," she responded. "But you never answered my question. Do you happen to have a power pill you could give me?" "A power pill? I didn't bring one along with me. We'll have to meet another day if you really want one," Kevin replied cautiously. He wasn't in a good mood right now, so he didn't want to give her an herbal med quite so easily. "Okay, I'll get in touch with you later, but you'd better have one on you next time," Officer Emmett warned him playfully. Kevin had left Lily waiting for far too long, so he quickly said goodbye and headed into the crowd. Officer Emmett looked a little disappointed. She sighed and started to walk towards the mall's exit on Halsted Street. Once she realized that Professor Futurioso was actually a fraud, it hit her that Blair had set the whole thing up. Then she remembered that time when he'd gotten someone to put on a mountain lion costume at the campsite. It bothered her that he could do this kind of thing over and over again just to manipulate people. Kevin had been walking for about 10 minutes and still hadn't reached the middle of the mall. After all, it was a huge complex and it was pretty crowded. As he looked around, Kevin suddenly had an idea. It occurred to him that he'd never really done anything romantic for Lily. So why not do something spontaneous right now? Kevin thought about it for a moment and then he sent a text to Tyler Dawn. While he was doing that, Lily and Rachel were slowly walking through the mall doing some window shopping. They hadn't noticed yet, but there were 2 men walking near them. They were Doug Butler, the man whose name Kevin had mocked at the campsite, and Doug's friend Mason.
"Would you like to have dinner with me this evening?" Doug asked Lily as he gave her a flattering smile.
He'd been thinking about her day and night ever since he first saw her. And here she was walking through the mall with Rachel, one of the most talked about real estate executives in all of Chicago. So Doug and Mason had quickly hatched a plan to try and pick up both of the women at the same time. "I'm really sorry, Doug, but we have other plans. You're on your own for dinner," Lily refused politely. Mason gave his friend a wink and tried to charm them too.
"Hang on, Lily. Don't be too hasty. I think fate must have brought us all together, and I'd like to ask Rachel to have dinner with me. Let's all go out together. How could you resist an offer like that?"
Doug picked up Mason's lead and tried to change Lily's mind.
"Let me get straight to the point, Lily. I really like you and I want you to be my girlfriend."
Then he touched some icons on his phone screen. Moments later, all the lights on Halsted Street started to dim and the TV screens all over the mall lit up with the name Lily. This got the attention of all the shoppers in the mall.
"I hope you like it, Lily. It was the only way I could think of to tell you how I feel about you," Doug told her proudly.
Although the mall had been built by the KWTD Corporation, Doug's family had been doing business with Tyler Dawn's associates in Chicago for a long time. Doug had just sent a message to one of his contacts at the KWTD Corp to ask them to do him a favor. In exchange, his family would be willing to negotiate with them for a multi-million-dollar project. "Look, Lily, what's your name doing on all the screens?" Rachel exclaimed. She saw just how determined Doug was to get her attention. Lily was impressed to see her name flashing on screens all over the mall. Her reaction really got Doug's hopes up. But as Lily looked around at all of the screens, a familiar face caught her eye. She hurried over to Kevin and asked him, "What took you so long, sweetie?" Hearing the anxiety in Lily's voice made Kevin smile a little. There were a ton of people at the entrance. It took me forever to squeeze through the crowd. When Mason saw Kevin arrive, he got a sour look on his face. In an attempt to help Doug win over Lily, he decided to try insulting Kevin.
"Well, who's this guy? He looks like a real to me. Do you see this light show? Doug set it up especially for Lily. I'll bet a like you could never top this."
Mason boasted so loudly that everyone around them could hear. Of course, the crowd stopped to watch this public spectacle. They were impressed when they found out that it was Doug who had arranged for the light show. And when they heard him call Kevin a loser, they believed him. Doug broke into a self-satisfied grin when he overheard their comments.
"I'll tell you what, Kevin. I like Lily, and I've decided I'm going to start dating her. If you have any common sense, you'll just back off. Maybe I'll invite you to our wedding," he said with disdain. "But don't bring any gifts. I'm sure you couldn't afford anything more than some cheap crap from a box store."
Lily was about to speak up when Kevin decided to put Doug in his place. "Hey, aren't you?" Kevin said loudly enough for the crowd to hear. "I remember you. Maybe I shouldn't have fished you out of the water back at the campground. Then you wouldn't be here right now spoiling Lily's afternoon." Then Kevin glanced around at the TV screens and added, "There's one more thing. If you're trying to win my wife's affection, you'll have to try harder than this. What the hell were you thinking?"
"Haven't you ever heard that a man's got to know his limitations?" Doug advised him. "If this doesn't impress you, let's see if you can do any better. 3 minutes from now, you'll see Lily's name along with mine up on all the screens," Doug bragged. "That's the difference between you and me. Do you understand what I'm saying?"
This drew a lot of gasps from the onlookers. They could see how elegantly Doug was dressed and figured Kevin didn't stand a chance in this competition. He was really biting off more than he could chew.
"I can't believe this guy. You're not even in the same league as my friend Doug,"
Mason remarked as he tried to egg Kevin on.
"If you can do better than to spell out Lily's name and mine with 150,000 light bulbs, go right ahead,"
Doug added arrogantly. "Let's go home, honey," Lily whispered in Kevin's ear as she put her hand gently on his shoulder. She didn't want to see him get embarrassed on her account. "Mr. Williams, Kevin, do you want me to do anything?" Rachel asked him. She wasn't quite sure what to call him in a public place. He saw how uncomfortable Rachel looked and he patted Lily on the back and replied calmly, "There's no need for that."
"What's that, Kevin? Afraid to do anything? Why don't you just get out of here?"
Doug challenged him. He was getting more and more overconfident. "I've had about enough of this," Kevin muttered as he pulled out his phone and tapped on Tyler's number. Moments later, his friend answered and Kevin said nonchalantly, "Hey, how are you doing? I need you to turn off all of the lighting and TV screens at the Halsted Street Mall."
Please subscribe to the Pocket FM YouTube channel and press the bell icon for instant notification. Check out our channel for more such exciting shows.